Since the dawn of humanity, there have been countless heroes formed in the minds of our greatest storytellers. From Hercules to Sherlock Holmes to Spider-Man. There have been 100,000 characters in our time, but none have ever been more iconic than the Dark Knight of Gotham, Batman. So why is Batman considered by so many to be the best hero? There are many out there who would argue Batman is the best hero because he is human, because we see ourselves in him, how anybody can become the Batman, or that he is the most realistic superhero, and thusly his stories are far more believable and immersive. As for the realism aspect, that one doesn't quite pan out that well, in my opinion. A good writer can take an outlandishly unrealistic premise and make an immersive story out of it. As long as the audience can understand what is happening and why, realism isn't the problem. Consistency is. The reason basing a story in the real world is effective for some is because it makes it easier for the writer to deliver a greater degree of consistency as they simply extrapolate the details from real life. Also, a thought I found quite interesting was how Batman is the only superhero whose secret identity is their mask. Barry Allen wears the mask of the Flash, Clark Kent wears the mask of Superman, but Batman wears the mask of Bruce Wayne. Batman is his true face. Bruce Wayne is merely another disguise. Now, there are many interesting points out there, but if you ask me, this is an age-old question that people have been overthinking, and the core reason behind why Batman is the best hero is a far simpler one than many would have you believe. Quite simply, Batman is the most iconic and interesting superhero because he has the most compelling conflict. So how can we prove this statement true? Well, it is no secret that Batman has a wide cast of interesting villains, such as Two-Face, Poison Ivy, and the Joker. But why are these villains such great villains? I'll give you a hint. Simply grabbing any great hero from fiction, grabbing any great villain from fiction, and thrusting them against one another will rarely work. If you threw Red Skull against Sherlock Holmes, the conflict would be quite stale, as the two characters' goals and traits are so utterly alien to one another. The reason Moriarty is such a good villain for Sherlock Holmes is because he is the only other person on Earth who can outthink him, and this creates an interesting challenge for Sherlock. One of the reasons the Joker is such an effective villain is because he challenges Batman's greatest weaknesses and strengths to their very extremes, this being the function of any good villain. But what if I told you that almost all of the iconic Batman villains are incredibly similar to the Joker, in that the vast majority of them challenge various aspects of his character? Poison Ivy challenges lust and temptation. Bane challenges strength. Scarecrow challenges fear. Riddler challenges intellect. And the Joker represents the toughest test of all. The reason why the Joker is the most iconic Batman villain is because he believes in anarchy and chaos. His values directly challenge the Batman's most fundamental values of justice and order. This is a direct fundamental opposite, which by its very nature creates compelling conflict. The fact that the Batman's villains so directly challenge aspects of his character means that he needs to show off the strengths of those characteristics to overcome those challenges, and when we see him solve his problems using his strengths in this way, it makes the audience like him even more. Nowhere in fiction will you ever find a better example of weaponized characterization than in the Batman's Rogues Gallery. Now, villains are one thing, but the actual protagonists themselves is quite another. There is a fantasy author named Brandon Sanderson. He is known by some for creating a set of 3 laws used for creating magic systems, the second of which is this.
Flaws are more interesting than the powers themselves. This is, again, a kind of core storytelling concept. Your story is generally going to revolve around what your characters have trouble doing, around what the magic can't do, rather than what it can. this might seem counterintuitive. You're like, I've developed this cool magic system, and now you're telling me I'm going to write a story about what it can't do.
Now, this rule may have been created by Sanderson for the purpose of making magic systems, but I also believe that it can be used for good characterization too. An interpreted way of saying this is a character's flaws are more interesting than a character's strengths. And this right here is where Batman comes into his own. Superman is the most powerful hero on Earth, and when he gets into a fist fight, we already inherently know he's going to win that fight because, well, he's Superman and he's so very amazing at doing everything. But even if Batman is fighting a group of street thugs, it is easy to write him into the part of the underdog, where all the odds are stacked against him. It's why often in superhero fiction you will almost always see a story arc where the main character will lose their powers, this all in a ploy to make them the underdog. This is the bread and butter of why we love Batman so much. He is the ultimate underdog, and we humans can't help ourselves but to cheer for the underdog. And by the nature of him being powerless, in a world where everyone he meets has some kind of power greater than his own, he is forced to stretch himself to defeat his more powerful enemies in ingenious and interesting ways. If Batman were fighting Bane, he would struggle. Bane is physically superior to Batman in every way. It would be a long drawn-out fight where Batman would almost lose several times. But then he would see Bane's strength comes from the tubes attached to his body, so eventually he would cut the tubes and defeat his enemy using his intelligence. If Superman were fighting Bane, he would just punch him. Once. It doesn't take a skilled writer to know which fight would be more interesting to watch, and when Batman takes on people much more powerful than he is, that is when he is tested more than Superman ever could be. And when he is victorious in the end, it is all the more sweeter. Everything is relative. In summary, when two gods fight each other in a battle that shakes the very heavens, it can be an interesting story. But when a mortal man with no powers takes on a god and wins, that story has the potential to be the best story ever told. Thanks for watching today's video. I hope you've noticed, but recently I've been trying to upload more frequently onto this channel as I'm finding making these essays not just entertaining, but highly rewarding. If you would like to see more video essays like this one from me, then please like and subscribe. Also, if you have any topics you would think would make for an interesting video, then please let me know in the comments down below. I do take requests. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next time on The Closer Look.
Because he's Batman.